All right, tell us your full name.
My name is Miralda Põder.
And what was your maiden name?
Oeselg.
Okay. Can you tell us about how your last name changed when you arrived to the United States?
Oh, they gave me an extra E, Poeder, because they didn't have the letter O.
What day were you born?
November 15, 1929,
And where were you born?
in Saaremma, Estonia.
And is that where you lived throughout your childhood?
Yeah,
Okay. What were your parents' names?
my mother was Eva Oeselg. My dad was Peter Oeselg.
And what were they like when you were growing up as a child?
My dad, I hardly remember. He left when I was 2 to work in United States ship to come in States. My mother was the best mother in the world.
Tell me about her.
So I was 5 years old. I had a nanny till I was 5, and I couldn't understand why my neighbors' kids didn't have somebody to follow them all the time. And now I feel sorry the way I treated that lady trying to hide behind the bushes.
What was her name? Do you remember?
Her name was also Eva, but I don't know her last name. But when I was older, I went to visit her all the time and took her some homemade bread. My mother sent it to her, so
You made it up to her.
I tried to make up to her, yeah.
What were the names of your siblings?
My sister was 6 years older, Alvi, and my brother was 14 years older, Waldemar.
And you had a baby brother?
I had a baby brother that was 1 year younger than me, Henry Eino, but he died when he was 2 years old in diphtheria.
Did you have a close relationship with your older siblings, with them being so much older?
Yes, I idolized my brother. But my sister and I got along better when we were older than we did when we were kids, because she always pulled my hair and said, if you tell mother, I pull it harder.
So what was life like those first 10 years growing up on the on the island? Like, what was the overall feeling? Did you have friends? What did you guys do for fun?
We had the best childhood. I had the best childhood because we lived right by the water, and all the neighborhood kids, we all played together and made up all different games, watching clouds, what animal you can make out of the cloud, and all.
Did you guys have any favorite other games you liked to play? Do you remember?
Yeah, we pretended the rocks were sheep in the water, and we kept washing them. And then in August, when it got warm, we just dug up the holes to find the rocks and holes.
Did you have a best friend?
I had best friend Sina. We grew up. She was a year older than I, and I idolized everything what she did.
Was everyone happy at that time?
Everyone was happy. Yes, I remember our houses were insured, and the company was Oma, It was on walls and outside. And once a year they came to collect the money, and they were asking questions, and I was bragging about my daddy. It was best daddy, sent me all different presents from United States, and she sent me a doll who was same size with me when I was 5 years old, and I put the doll's sweater on me. I was so tiny. So
Um, what was the name of where you lived? Did you have an address, or did your property have a name?
no, I not Dalu.
And what was your house like?
We had new house built. That had new house built, 2-story, 6 rooms downstairs, 4 rooms upstairs. And we moved in that house when I was 1 year old, but I don't remember it. And we had the only house that had a basement in under the kitchen where we kept some homemade jams and things that they were made in front the fall.
And that's the only house you remember living in?
Yes,
Where did you live when you were born?
I lived in my dad's house, Gibeonum, and
Did you have animals at your house?
I had a cat and the dog, 2 cats and the dog,
Do you remember?
and I had 2 cows and a horse, and we had sheep and pigs and chickens, and one little baby lamb followed me everywhere. Even one morning I woke up and the door was open, got in the house, was in bed with me.
Did you have a garden?
We had garden, and I hated that garden because I had to pull the weeds, and I thought I'd never be a farmer.
What kinds of things did you grow on your farm?
Oh, everything, little bit of everything.
Did you mostly grow things just for your family to eat, or did you grow other things as well?
No, just for the family, yes.
And then what did you do with the rest of your land? Was that mostly hay, or?
Well, that hay was for the cows, and yeah, it was. I don't know. I was too young to remember if they sold anything or not. I don't know.
Did you ever leave the island when you were young? Did you ever go to like mainland Estonia when you were young?
Yes, but I was already 14 when I went to Tartu to have my tonsils out.
Do you remember when the president came to visit your island?
Yes, I do. There is a picture of me standing in the front with my American clothes on, light green coat with the long collar.
Did your dad send you those clothes?
Yes.
Was that an exciting day on the island when?
Oh yeah, everybody was there.
Where did you go to school, and what was it like?
The school was right next door because it was built in our property, and we had 4 grades in the same room and 1 teacher.
What grades were they?
First, second, third, and fourth.
And you went there all 4 years?
Yes.
What kinds of things did they focus on? Like, what did you learn while you were there?
Everything, reading, writing,
How did they work with like so many different ages? They just have you.
Well, the teacher divided the hours, or whatever days they took more of the different class. Mm-hmm. But you learned a lot because when you're little, you listen what the older ones learn.
How many kids were in your grade? Do you remember?
I only had 5 in first grade.
And what did you like best about school?
Oh, I liked everything. But I most liked arithmetic.
Yeah. Do you remember the name of your teacher?
Yeah, Mrs. Lasik.
And was she nice?
Yes.
Strict? Or just.
Yeah, we had to listen. Kids those days all were good.
Yeah. Um, where did you go to church?
Jämajas Lutheran Church.
Was the church a big part of your community?
It was 6 kilometers from our house.
So did you walk to church or did you?
We usually took the buggy horse.
Mhm.
We never walked. We took summertime. We took motorbike out to the cemetery. Or
Did a lot of people attend church on Sundays? Was it pretty full?
a lot of people attended church those days. Yes.
Any other childhood stories you want to share or you can think of?
Well, it depends what age.
any until you were 10.
Well, they were all good years until I was 10. I remember especially one, my best friend Sina, we were playing, there was a sand pile where we played, and we saw my nursemaid, the lady, we called her old lady, coming, and Sina said, lay down, I cover you with the sand, and I tell her you're not here. And she was coming, and oh my God, she thought I was dead under the sand because I couldn't breathe. But we couldn't see, and I couldn't understand how she knew I was there.
Good thing she did if you couldn't breathe. Were there other times that you almost died as a child?
Yeah, one time I was in the water and walking forward with my hair in the water. I wanted to be a mermaid, and I flipped over and the water pressed me down. I couldn't get up. I had a hard time. And I had my little girlfriend Asta playing with me, and when I finally got up, she was all the way home already.
And what happened when you got something stuck?
And when after the nursemaid left, she had a granddaughter that needed help. She got sick to take care of her. And my sister was 11. They said she was old enough to look after me. And we laid down the chairs in the kitchen and ran around them that catch me. I fell down and I had a lima bean in my mouth, raw lima bean. And it went on my windpipe and I couldn't breathe. So mother wasn't home, and we had a maid. It was in a barn. She went looking for her, and she came and said, "Go find your mother," because she knew where my mother was at my godmother. So she came home, put the horse in front of the buggy, and took me to the doctor that was 8 kilometers from our house. And the doctor tried to call the ambulance, but that was out getting somebody else. So they waited till 6 o'clock till the bus came back, and they put me on a bus and sent me on a bus to the hospital. Then they cut my throat. I don't remember that. But in the morning, my mom said I was coughing so much. So the bean had gone, lima bean had gone so far down that they couldn't get everything up. Piece had gone on my lungs, and that made me cough. then the stitches broke, and that's why I have the ugly scar on my neck all my life. And I remember the second time when they put me early in the morning on operating table, but they had a man laying on the table and they laid me on top of him. And I said, I don't want to sit on his lap, I don't know him. And I remember bubbles coming out my mouth. That's the last thing I remember. And at that time I was 6 weeks in the hospital. And when I came home, I couldn't walk anymore. I had to learn to walk all over.
So how old were you when that happened?
I was just a little after 5.5. And then we came home. My grandmother, my mom's mom, had died, and my mom had to go to the funeral, and I wasn't strong enough, so my godmother came and stayed with me. But in the meantime, when I was in the hospital, and my mom said they were bringing me out of the operating table, and they were wheeling my brother in the operating room. So my mom was the strongest woman living all that through.
Your baby brother?
No,
Your
my
older brother.
Why
was he going into the hospital?
He was in Kuressaare in high school, and his roommate had a BB gun, and they were playing with it. It opened, and the bullet was on my brother's chest, so close to the heart that those days they didn't operate it. He died with that bullet in his chest.
But he recovered.
Oh, he recovered, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Your poor mom, and she lost her mom at that time?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
She had 3 or tragedies at the same time.
Did your mom have some other children as well that did not live as long as
she had 4? Yeah, 3 first ones.
Before she had her oldest, your brother?
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else about your childhood that you could tell us about?
Well, and I remember when the Russians came in.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Do you remember the day they first arrived?
Yeah.
What was that day like? Were you expecting them? Was it a surprise?
No, nobody expected them. They just drove on the yard and took our house over. And the 3, I don't know what titles they have. One was, I think, Politruk or something they call it, lieutenant. And one was Ukrainian nationality. But those 3 took our house over, and my sister had to give her bedroom up too, and I had my bed in my mother's room, and my sister got that bed to sleep there, and I slept with my mother.
So you had to live with the soldiers?
Oh yeah, but they left us living there in one room, but we were only allowed to use the kitchen when they weren't using it.
So how did you feel when all of that was happening? Like, were you in shock, or what were you thinking?
Well, it's not as scary as a child as it was for grown-ups, because we had to start learning Russian right away, and the one Ukrainian fella was helping me every night pronounce the words and helping me with the Russian homework.
So were the soldiers that lived in your house, were they nice to you guys?
They were nice, yeah. The one Ukrainian saved our life because everybody knew the truck that came to get the people to take to Siberia, and he saw the truck coming and he told us, go in the bedroom and don't say a word. And he went out and talked to them. Whatever he said, the truck turned around and went away.
So why was the truck coming to take so many people to Siberia?
Because my father was in the United States, and that time Russians United States was enemy just like now, but when they needed help in the war, then the Americans were only good for a little while.
And so, did they take a lot of people that you knew?
They took the policeman from our town, and the mother wasn't home, and they had 3 little children, one in cradle. They left them home alone till the mother came and found out that they had taken. And I was watching the truck going by, and he was waving to me. I was waving back.
The police officer?
Yeah.
Did they take anyone else that you knew?
Not from our town.
So they just wanted your family because your father was connected to the U.S.?
Yeah. But that was on the end when the Germans already were coming in.
So that was towards the end of that year?
Yeah, that was an end.
Okay. So how did your mom react to these men just coming into the house and living there?
Well, there was no choice. You had to. We were lucky that we were allowed to stay in that one room.
So did you continue to go to school? So you were 10 at this time.
Yes.
So did you continue to go to the same school?
No, then that year I was still in 4th grade when we had to start learning Russian.
So school changed though, like what you had to learn?
Then we only had 4th grade in that school. Then we had to go 5 kilometers. The other middle school. And we had to walk, didn't matter what kind of weather it was, snow or rain.
And what did the Russians tell you? Why were they there? What did they tell you when they came?
No, they didn't tell us anything.
They just came?
No, they just came, yeah.
So what was life like then? Other than obviously you lived, were you still able to come and go as you wanted?
Life was like you had to work where they told you to go to work.
Okay.
So you couldn't choose your own.
Did they take your animals as well?
No, but you had to give the milk, and whatever you got off the land, you had to give to the whatever, I don't know.
Were you still able to go out and play with your friends and that?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember seeing anyone being treated unkindly around you during that time?
No. I remember then the Russians were still there when the Germans were coming, and they were on the ship bombing, and the first one hit our sauna and made a big hole in it.
Your sauna got bombed?
Yeah.
And what were you doing at that time?
We were in the kitchen, and all of a sudden the kitchen window blew in, and we went out the back door in the cellar on the yeah.
So you went underground, and that's how you guys stayed safe?
Yeah, where we kept the vegetables over winter.
So did that happen often, the bombing, or was it just the one day?
The one time only that hit so close to us. Whatever went other places, I don't remember. And I remember they shot one plane down, and our neighbor boys, they went and got some stuff out of the airplane to make combs. and then when there was often the airplanes were shooting on the bow, and the ship was shooting there, and the war was coming in, was only about 50 kilometers from us, where the biggest fight was in Saaremma. And I remember one night they made my mom and Sina's mom and the ladies all go dig the holes. And we were so scared we could see the lights uh, from where they were.
Why were they digging holes?
Were the soldiers to
Hide in?
hide in, yeah, when at wartime. And that's when they were bombing again from the ship, and we had to go to the Russians made bunkers, they were called, where the soldiers stayed in. We were going there and hiding there, and one Russian soldier was shaking, and he went under the bunker where Sina and I were laying, and Sina's little sister Sylvie. And he thought that he rather had us killed than him. So then when the Germans came in after that.
And were you expecting the Germans? Did you know?
Oh yeah, we knew they were coming, yeah. And we were the only house in village that had a radio, and people every night came over to listen to the radio, so we knew what was going on with the war.
And who was talking on the radio about it? Do you remember?
Well, it came from Tallinn and Turku, different channels.
So you knew they were So what was that like on the day when the Germans finally did come?
Well, when the Germans came, the Russian, one young Russian fella tried to go up on the ladder to go and hide on the hay, on where the animals' hay was kept on another building. And my mom was pulling his leg. I thought he was going to pull his pants off. She says, "You're not hiding." And then they were all lined up. Germans came, and one said, "Mama sauna, mama sauna." My mom didn't speak German, said, "Sauna katki, sauna." So he went to sauna with her, and he saw the hole, and he went next door and told the ladies she had to make the sauna, and she had to go and wash their backs, and my mom was so happy that the hole was in sauna. But the Germans, then we got all our house back. We weren't afraid anybody coming at night and take us or kill us. But the Russian time, you weren't allowed to have more than 4 people in a guest coming in the house, and they come and look on the windows, and see. Our house always was for young people's get together. We had volleyball and basketball and everything. My brother was very active in sportsy like that. And
so the German soldiers did not move in your house?
No.
They let you live in your house?
Yes.
And what were your brother and sister doing during this time of the
Well,
Russians?
Russians took my sister.
Where did they take her?
To service, Russian service.
Oh, I didn't know
that. So we never heard about anything, no letters or anything from him.
Oh, this was your brother?
My brother.
Yeah, they came and took him to service?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
did he get to come home after the Russians left?
He and my neighbors, 2 fellas, were the only ones who were down. No, one more. But he had his feet frozen and he had a hard time walking. All the other people that went, they got killed there. But my brother said they were lucky because they had was Estonian that took all the Estonian soldiers under his wing, Lembit Pärn. And he, my brother said he took English and German and French in school, but he did not want to learn Russian. And he said Russian was the one that he needed. And he said, but I didn't need the Russians even in Russia because Lembit talk Estonian with the Estonian soldiers. And
Do you know what happened to Lembit?
I don't know.
So after the Russians left, did your brother come home then?
Well, then the Germans took us. We heard when my mom and the ladies went to dig the holes, they came back and they said the Russians are collecting people to take them to Germany to work. And we have to hide. We don't want to go. Mama said, I want to see my son coming back. I want to be here. In meantime, my sister was dating my later brother-in-law, and he was in German service, and he was afraid that the Russians were going to kill him. So they took our motorboat and they went to Sweden.
This was like 4 years later when the Russians were coming back?
Yeah.
Okay. So they went to Sweden.
They went to Sweden, and we were waiting at the ships to come and take us their due. They were going to come back. But they said they didn't make it back because the winds were so strong. And
so your first plan was to go to Sweden?
Yeah.
But they didn't come back for you?
No. And then we were hiding in the woods. My neighbor's mother with her daughter and three children. My mom was little. And we were hiding in the woods not to go to Germany. And it was November, it was so cold. So they told us, we said, let's make little hot water to make tea. And the soldiers must have seen the smoke. They came with the guns and they said, you come with us. And they took us back home. And I said, tomorrow we're coming for you and you be in the car to go to Germany or you'll be killed. So next day Mama looks out the window and said, they're coming, lay down in bed and pretend you're sick. I was shaking, I was sure they're going to kill me. So they took my temperature, and I had temperature, but maybe from the cold in the woods, where I was so scared. And they gave me one pill, I don't know what it was apparently aspirin. And she said, tomorrow morning we be back, and you're going to come with us. So we went to the lady that was maid in our house. She got married from our house, and their house was the other side of the schoolhouse. Our properties touched each other. And we went to hide in their house in the attic. So all of a sudden she looks out the window and she said, they're pulling my mother on the ground to the truck. I cannot let them take my mother by herself, So she went down. And my mom says, well, we might as well go down too because they're going to come look up here if it's more. So they put us in a truck and they went by our house, and our little dog was running next to the truck and barking.
What was your dog's name?
Lucky. And they took us Möntu Sadam, where they put us on a boat. But the boats only went out through the night because the Russians were bombing the boats. So it was 14th of November when they put us on that boat. And on 15th of November, we got to Latvia. It was my 15th birthday. We were the last boat to leave Estonia, even if they have a memorial there written that October was the last boat. It wasn't. It was November 14th. And then we stayed in that boat all day long till night. Again, they took us to Denmark. We got in Denmark, and my biggest surprise was that mermaid looked so little. In school, when we studied on the books, it looked big. So,
What mermaid? What are you talking about?
mermaid in Denmark, they have a mermaid
Statue?
a statue, yeah, on the stones. So when we got off the boat, my best friend Sina came running and she said, "We have two beds in our room. Come stay with us." So we didn't tell anybody that we were leaving. We just followed her and went to their house. We were lucky because next day the train took that group to Germany. The ones that were behind, they had hard time. They took them. They later got caught by Russians, and Ülo Tuulik was one that wrote a book about their trip back from Germany to Estonia. And my next door neighbor, the one we were hiding in the woods with, she was so sick already that she died on the way. On the Latvia, they had to bury her down. They were pulling her on the branches. They wanted to bury her in Estonia, but they didn't make it. But then, when the train took us, our first stop was Düsseldorf, and was a big 3-story building, and or 2-story or 3, but on the second floor was my mother's aunt and uncle, and their 2 daughters, and the one daughter had a little boy Sulev, and she was pregnant with the other boy. And so everybody was already so weak. My uncle's wife, great uncle's wife, died there.
Were they weak because they hadn't been fed much?
No food, yeah. Germans didn't have food themselves. There was no
So
food.
on the boat and on the train, you guys just weren't given much of
No.
any food?
But my mom took big smoked ham and big loaf of bread with us. So we were lucky. We had a little bit. And
were you able to take anything else with you when you were taken by the Germans? Did you take
only suitcases? And my mom was smart. She packed one big blanket, nice blanket in a suitcase. That's what saved us. Because after the Düsseldorf, they put us on a train again, and they took us to Liechtenstein, Germany. And there was an old movie house with no heat or anything, and all the people were on second floor, the big room, laying down with little piece of straw on the floor. And the one, Peter Pera, his wife, was so sick already, A lot of people died there, children and older people, because it was so cold, no heat and no food. And then people got lice, big lice. It wasn't little lice on the head, it was on the clothes everywhere. And one old lady, were a child, it was funny, she said to her sister, eat the lice, it's meat.
So did they?
I don't know. But then from there they lined us up to work for the German family. And I was picked, I had very, the woman had third baby, and the husband got home from service just a little visit. But he had to leave, so he's the one that came and picked me to work for his wife.
From the movie house?
From the movie house, yeah.
And so they lived in the same town?
Yeah.
What was that
called? It was a farm. It was maybe 2-3 kilometers or so.
And what did you do there?
I had to milk 4 cows every morning, every night, and take care of the kids, the 2 older ones, and peel the potatoes or help her in the house.
Did you sleep there? Like, did you have to stay there?
Yes. And then I got a telegram. No, she was very nice. She had my mother and Sina's mother come for Christmas dinner. And she fixed a very nice dinner.
So what was your mom doing at this time?
My mom was still at the camp.
Oh, there was a camp at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
So...
but the war was not over yet?
No. That was in January. I mean, after Christmas, in January, they had like a big building where they kept wheat, and the machine that they went through the machine to separate the seeds from the...
Like to husk it or whatever?
Yeah. And I had wooden shoes, and I wasn't used with the wooden shoes. And I was so afraid I was on top. I was giving it to the feeder, the young fella who was feeding in the machine. I was afraid that my wooden shoe will go and break the machine. I was constantly putting it back on. And it's the same when I went to milk the cows, the wooden shoes came off walking. They were a little big for me, and I kept walking in the snow.
What was it like in Germany at that end of the wartime?
It was hard.
I mean, was there a lot of fighting and bombing going on, or?
Oh yeah, that war. That came later, but then they kept taking us on the train. In January, we got a telegram that my mother was semi-conscious, dying for me to come to the camp.
What was the name of that camp? Do you remember?
That was the movie house.
It was still at the movie house. Okay.
And the lady wouldn't let me go at night because she said you get lost. Was a lot of snow on the ground. So Sina came with me to see her mother then too.
And what was Sina doing at this time? The same thing?
She was we were lucky, next door neighbor picked her. So we still had each other. And then the lady had baked a seed cake for me to take for my mother. When I got to the camp, my mom had come through. What was, she had a big boil in her back, and it was infected, and finally it broke, and the infection came out. There, everything was fixed with your own pee. They said that's the best medicine. So Sina's mom was taking care of my mother, putting her pee on the back and washing that
Boil.
boil. Yeah, there was no medication, no medicine. And
What was Sina's mom's name?
Mina. And then we went back, and I think it was just a week or two later, 2 weeks later, it was still January. We got a telegram again that the camp is going to be moved. Põder let them to go with us. The lady asked me, please help me, we go horse and buggy. I can't handle the 3 kids myself, the Russians were coming. Then they took us, the train went to Rothenburg, and one of the lady that was so sick, she died on the train. It was raining like ice rain, and we were open platform. They were taking the broken military tanks and equipment on that train. And on Rothenburg it stopped and took that lady off there to be buried. So then next stop was in Berlin. And there wasn't a single house left. It was so bombed. But they had sirens, the train to stop because they're going to bomb again. And we were running under the ruins in the cellar. And one lady put on our train, put the suitcase down, and the lice were running off her. And somebody else said, leave her, she can't walk anymore, she's dying. Whenever the lice or rats run off this people or ship, that means that gonna be disaster. And we never saw her after we came back out, she wasn't there. So apparently what happened, I don't know. And then my one relative was third cousin or something. He got caught between the train and the wall and was squashed. He cried all night in such a pain, and then he died there.
How old was he?
He was in his 20s. And from Berlin, then when we got back on the train, they took us to Langwedel. And there was a little a house that the Germans went together with drinking beer and talking. So we were given that house to stay there. A lot of people died there too.
Because it was cold?
Yeah, no food. And they came bombing. The war went over. We were looking out the basement window how the German soldiers were running with holding the guns. And one bomb hit the big building across the street from where we were, and one American soldier was running in our hallway, and the piece hit him in the back, and the flesh were running all on the wall, and blood all over, watching him dying there. And then came a word, my mom and my uncle had gone looking. They gave us cards for buying food. They went to the store to see if there is anything there. And we got a word that one Estonian was killed. I never prayed harder as I did, and please let not be my mom. It was my mom's uncle got killed there.
How did he die?
When they were bombing.
So your mom was with him, but she did not get hurt.
No. And then the Americans came in, and we had Estonian flag out, and Sina and Laine and I were the three teenagers were so sick that they couldn't even send us to sauna. We couldn't lift our heads, dying. And Sina lost all her, not Sina, Laine lost all her hair. And when you can't see yourself, but you see doesn't look anything worse than skin on the bones, like a skeleton. Excuse me. Then the Americans bought a Burgermeister, that's the city mayor, and pushed that fella on my face. Look at that child. And he had the biggest nose, and long time I saw that nose coming to me.
Did they want him to look at you like as a punishment to him?
Yeah.
Like this is what you did?
Yeah. And then the Americans said, bring eggs and milk. We had one fella that spoke good English, and he said Auster, and said, no, don't bring any milk because our eggs, that will kill them. Just bring the dry bread like Sweepak. Let them chew on that first, and then bring the food. So that's what they did. We survived. All three of us survived.
And was that just from hunger?
Yeah.
Why you were so?
Hunger and cold.
So then what?
Then the American soldiers came in and said they discovered when they hit that big building, they had hit a hidden room where they were hiding all the macaronis and cigars. Said, if you want, you can have that. Go pick as many as you want. Sina and I went to pick on those and brought them back in our bed. But those cigars helped a lot. We get change from potatoes from Germans later on, and food. And I went with my little cup begging for milk from the farmers before I got sick, but they always gave me some milk, so they were nice, but they didn't have anything themselves.
So then where'd you go next?
Then they said they opened a bigger camp where a lot of Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian. We even had the Jewish people come in that camp. They were teaching us the Jewish dance, Seedorf.
That was your first camp?
That was the camp, yeah, where we were all.
And what was that?
Then the American Red Cross were feeding us, and we got a lot of pea soup. To this day, I still love pea soup because that tasted so good. And
so what was life like at that first camp at Seedorf?
Well, it was so much better because we got at least food. They gave us.
Where did you sleep? Like, what were the living conditions like?
Well, there were rooms. Mama and I had our own room, and there were three. They had been soldiers, Estonians, were next door to us, and we had another family next door to us. So then we were taken from there to Estonian camp in Oldenburg. That's where my son was born. Then I got married in Seedorf.
So you met Grandpa
Yeah, at the camp.
in Seedorf.
Yeah, and then Lembit was born.
And how did you and Grandpa start dating? Like, how did you become a couple? How did you meet him? And
Well, all the young people were all together all the time, so that's how met him.
and how did Grandpa end up at that camp? Where was he
Well,
coming
they
from?
were brought from the other smaller camp there.
How did he end up in Germany?
Oh, they left earlier. He was really born in Russia, an Estonian village, and the Russians took everything over. Wasn't the Estonian village anymore, so they got.
Okay. So how long was Grandpa's family in Siberia?
They were there 1 year because my mother-in-law was so talented and she made hats and everything for the big shots' wives and children. And one fella said they brought you out the wrong way, that there was no excuse why. But it was another Estonian family that was jealous of their family that put their name down to be sent to Siberia. The name was Jurgensen. And so he said, go back, but don't go back to your hometown, because that's when they take you again. And
so that's why they didn't go home when they got out of Siberia?
Yeah, they went different town. So that's how they got back.
And then did they have to walk somewhere from Siberia? Like, how did they get...
Yeah, they had to...
Did they walk back to their hometown, and that's when they decided to leave with the Germans?
Yeah, because they knew they would be taken back to Siberia.
So you met Grandpa.
Met Grandpa.
In
We got
Seedorf.
married in WWII Lembit.
What was your wedding like there? Who married you?
We were Justice of Peace for German. And then later on we got married in church. But then we went to Oldenburg, and Lem was only 11 months. Lembit was 11 months old, and I was pregnant, and they took us Red Cross ambulance, and Lembit knew every animal, the sounds, pointed out the window when we went by the farm, and the driver couldn't believe it. Said, I have my daughters too, and doesn't know any animals.
And this is when you went to have
Went to Oldenburg.
the baby.
And then they were building a new barrack for us for Oldenburg. And our Estonians from there all went to Oldenburg. And that's when I went to the hospital there at Linda, my daughter. But they put me in the hospital a week before because I had so much trouble when Lembit was born. I got the cramps and I bit my tongue so bad, it swelled up so bad. And they put me in the bathroom on top of the bathtub on a stretcher. And my husband said he wondered why all the doctors are running in that bathroom all the time. But didn't see my son till a week later because they thought for sure I'm gonna die. He said not many people survive that. And I wasn't allowed to drink, only cold water.
It was just because you bit your tongue?
Yeah.
That's why? And then it was better when you
Yeah,
had...
then...
Second time was better?
Oh, yeah. I was in the hospital for only 2 weeks.
So when you guys lived at the camps, were those the only two you lived in? Seedorf and Oldenburg?
Yeah, Estonian.
And what did you guys do, like, for entertainment? Like, what did you do for fun in the camp?
Well, in the Seedorf camp, they had the Auster was his name. He's the one that was the spokesman in English. His wife was ballerina in Berlin, and she was one of the best. But she married Estonian, so they came to camp to live because Germans didn't have food in the cities that time, and was better life in camp by the Red Cross help. And that's why I still help Red Cross better than anybody else, because they saved us. And then they had some kind of sickness with the women that were in that hospital that time when Linda was born, got infection in the breast. And I caught that too. And I had to go back in the hospital a week after with Linda. And I survived.
So did you guys dance?
Oh yeah, so the ballerina got us, said we have to do something that the other groups were bigger, Lithuanian and Latvians, and at entertainment or like, so she said, we're going to teach you the ballet. So there were 4 of us girls and 4 fellas, and we were learning, we were entertaining. The Germans came to watch it too because they all loved the German ballerina. And we did good job. They said all the people was so many as effective in that building to come see us. And then the German ballerina, she took me with her on the German ballet group to dance. I had to dance gypsy dance, one solo dance myself. I got 50 marks for it.
Oh, wow.
So
how did you guys, were you able to work? And
no,
were you able to get jobs when you were in the camp? Or
no. Well, like, yeah, my husband worked, they worked for American company, like cutting whatever they did, cutting food, and some people worked in the kitchen, and my mom worked in the kitchen.
At the camp or somewhere
At
else?
the camp, yeah. And people worked. My father-in-law was cutting the logs to the big woods. I don't know where, but we have a picture of that.
So how did people start getting to go other places? Like, did you know you wanted to go to the United States, or would you be happy to go anywhere?
I always wanted to come. My dad had already planned for us to come in the United States when we were in Estonia, and send us visas when the Russians were in, and they did not let us out. And that's why it was the excuse that my dad was in America to put us to that.
Truck.
truck too. Um, and when we were in Germany, my dad found out that we were at the camp. He wrote us a letter, and we wrote back. But he died a year before we got United States of, he said, overgrown tumor. But my godfather that lived in New York, he sent us Red Cross packages too at camp for the children. My uncle lived in Nevada. He sent the Red Cross package for the kids' food when we were at camp. So we weren't starving. We were eating good and that time. But then there was one Lutheran minister in New York that had been in the United States for a long time, and he decided take pictures and send it to him, and he will find people who need workers. So meantime, my sister was in Canada, and my sister sent an invitation for her to go live with her. And I put her from Bremenov, and I put her on the ship, and she went to Canada.
So they got permission for her to come?
Yes.
And how did your sister end up in Canada?
Oh, that's a long story too. That's book written about that boat. That they came in a little boat and ended up with the storm too in the United States. And they were 6 months in Ellis Island before Canada took them.
Did they plan to stay in the U.S., but they ended up going to Canada instead?
Yeah, because the United States wouldn't let them stay because they didn't have visas to come in.
Okay, so they just came when they were fleeing after
Right.
the war?
Yeah, they were afraid the Russians came back to Estonia second time, and they were a rumor that they might be given back, and that's why they...
How many people traveled on that small boat with them? About?
I don't know, about 12 or so. I don't know. I don't remember.
It was just a fishing boat?
Yeah.
And they went all the way across to
Yes.
the ocean?
Well, then we got the sponsor in Texas. It was a rancher with cows. My husband was a cowboy. And meantime, when we were coming from Germany in a ship, we got...
what year was it when you finally left?
We left from the Camp Waldenburg 49 in November. We were supposed to get on a November ship. But one of the kids in our room got measles, and they put Lembit and Linda to the hospital to see if they come down with measles. They never came down with measles, so they stayed in the hospital for a long time. And Lembit taught Linda how to talk. But there were two of them, and said every night he waited, the nurses were left, and waited for them to close the door. He climbed in Linda's crib and slept together.
And were you able to visit them at this time, or no?
No, we weren't allowed to, only through the window. And because they were still waiting for them to come down with the measles. So we said, no, the other boat, February is leaving. We have to get them out. They didn't come down that long. They won't come anymore now. So the ship was an old military ship. A lot of soldiers were on it. And day and a half from New York, we hit the big storm, and the top two decks cracked in the middle. They were bolting it together there, and then they had 5 big ships around us, guiding us to New York harbor.
Was it scary when the storm was happening and you were on the boat?
It felt like you went on the bottom and never come up again. The waves were so strong, and there was a big bang. Linda's crib went from one wall to hit the other wall. And then my godfather heard from New York. He knew we were on that ship. He came to get us off that boat to bring. They wouldn't have said, no, you can't have him. They didn't even let us to see him, because they have guarantee that they have to work in 1 year in Texas. Well, then we were put in another ship, and that went to New Orleans. And from New Orleans we were put on a train to San Antonio, and the people that gave us the jobs were waiting for us in there and took us in the car.
How long was the journey from the time you left Germany until you arrived to Texas? How long did that take?
We left on 2nd of February, and we got 24th of February in New Orleans, so we weren't that long.
Yeah. So when you arrived in New York first, did you have to go through customs and that kind of stuff?
No, because that New York, they put us on the other ship
right away.
So we didn't have to go through anything.
Okay, so then you arrived in San Antonio.
Yes, and they took us on the ranch. Plus, on the ship, Linda had an ear infection and temperature. She was put in the hospital, and Lambit was with me. Dad was put downstairs with the men. We weren't in the same room. And one day, my husband didn't come up, and Lambit burst out crying. Why we don't go up and down and see Daddy? We went. It was struggle because I had Linda on my lap, and there were 2 steps down, very deep. We got down there, and he was up on the 3rd. What are those hammocks? And we got back up, and Lem burst out crying. That's why Daddy can't come to see us. He came every day. That he cannot get down there from there. I had to carry them all the way down again to see him to come out, and then he can get down. But he was seasick, that's why he didn't come that day.
Now, were you fed well on the ship and taken care of well on
Yes,
the ship?
but it was so stormy that I had in my room one Lithuanian lady with 2 daughters, and they were so seasick, throwing up all the time. So they never got to the lunch room. I took my kids to the lunchroom. None of us were seasick, but we had to clean the floor every day. And all of a sudden, the fella walks in and says, "Why are you cleaning the floor?" I said, "Well, you want us to clean." "Well, what's better the other lady? I never see." I said, "She's sick. She's sick because she's in bed." And they made her get up and wash the floor. And I thought that was so mean. So one day I tried to take her children to the lunchroom the older girl threw up all over the table.
Mm.
I took him back. We couldn't, none of us ate.
So you then ended up in Texas
In a ranch, yeah.
with Grandpa's parents as well.
No, Grandpa's parents came a month later.
Okay, so they didn't travel across with you guys.
No,
They came on a different boat?
Yeah.
But same family
Yeah,
sponsored them?
yes. There was another Estonian family, like, working for the father of our boss. Luik was their name. And then the grandmother wanted company. He hired my father-in-law, mother-in-law to work for him. She liked flowers and things, and she had a cow and she wanted to milk and take care of. And there we didn't know anything about animals. My father-in-law said, somebody's stealing the eggs. I'm going to watch. And he watched and was a skunk and he hit it with his broom. And he went in the house and my mother-in-law said, get out. And she said she tried to wash those clothes, but we hardly had any clothes and she buried them because she couldn't get them clean. And when we got there, the Luik's family came over right away and brought us loaf of bread. She said when we came, my kids cried all night because they were hungry. And they didn't have, our building really was like a war walls and divided into 4 rooms. And the kitchen, we didn't have kitchen, so we had to eat with them. And the kids were not used to corn and all that food. They wouldn't eat, so we were glad to have the bread. And so they had, first morning, I woke up, Lembit was full of like water blisters. We didn't know about the mosquitoes. They didn't have screens on the window. We opened the window and he was eaten so bad by the mosquitoes. So
then how long were you in Texas?
We were there. We had to stay 1 year.
So that was to pay them back for sponsoring you to come?
Yes. But they were very nice people. They were really... She gave me, I couldn't understand why all of a sudden a bunch of women came with all kind of baby presents. I was pregnant with Marianne. And gave us baby shower. We never had seen anything like that. And they had presents for Linda and Lembit too. They had a little boy between exactly Linda and Lembit. They wanted playmates for the kids. Instead of my kids learning English, he learned Estonian because 2 of them were speaking Estonian. So one time he hit Linda and Linda said, Kas hit me, and I said, he's bad boy, but I said it in Estonian, but he understood. He said, Mommy, I'm not bad boy, am I?
So was it difficult coming to the United States not being able to speak English?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, hard to communicate. So how long did it take to learn English?
Not. I tried hard. Not that long because a lot of speaking German, a lot of words, you relate what only mean different things. Then there was a German town, Uvalda, and our boss took us there for Marianne to be baptized. Lutheran church, because we spoke German and we could, American church, we wouldn't know what they were saying.
So you could speak Estonian, Russian and German when you came, just not English.
Yeah, but they're not Russian that good. I know.
Oh, because they were only there for 1 year.
Yeah, but I know when they were talking about taking our boat, and I said, "Don't take our boat. Take somebody else's boat." And Kima said, "I shouldn't have taught you that much Russian that you understand everything we say."
So after a year, where did you go after you were done in Texas?
It was so hot for my in-laws, and
And what were their names?
Lisa and Johannes. And then we went. We had friends that were in a camp with us. Her husband was killed by the bus, and she had 3 kids. And she said, "You can come and live with us, and I go to work, and you can watch the kids." And we all lived together.
And where was that?
Houston.
Houston, okay. And how long did you stay in Houston?
A year and a half. So then we had friends in Baltimore that got us apartment there. And they said there's a lot of workshops here for men to work as carpenters, and women work on sewing factories. And the one that got us the apartment, she worked in Dixie Cup factory. So
were there a lot of Estonians in Baltimore?
Yes, that time there was. And then we moved to New Jersey because the people had friends here that worked with my husband, and they didn't have enough money to put down payment to their house. So we lent them $500 so we can stay at their apartment upstairs till it's good, rent is paid, and look for a house. And that's how we ended up in New Jersey. And
you bought this house?
We bought
what
this
year
house,
was that?
1954 in February, and it's going to be 70 years next year for me to be in this house. Now I'm 6 weeks away from 94, and still God is not ready for me.
How old were you?
I have more than cat has 9 lives. I have had more than nine lives.
How old were you when you came to the U.S., you and Grandpa? How old were you?
20.
You were 20? Was he 21? Is he a year older?
22.
22 when you got here. So was there a strong Estonian community around here that you could be a part of? And
Lakewood, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what kind
Philadelphia and Lakewood we were.
Where did you go for the most part? Philadelphia or Lakewood?
Well, we went to Philadelphia to church, but in Lakewood at the biggest parties and get-togethers. Mm-hmm. There were thousands of people on.
So a lot of Estonians settled in that area?
Yeah, all around. Even when we moved here, after the Christmas, our mailman said, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to be nosy, but what kind of people are you? You get mail from every state in the United States and every country in the world." I said, "Because if you slept on the floor with a lot of people, men and women, children all together, you feel like one big family." And we really kept in touch in the beginning.
Yeah. Where did Sina end up?
Sina ended up in Australia, but she came to visit me once in there.
How did she end up in Australia? Same as you? Did she get sponsored or?
Right, Australia took so many workers they needed. At first she ended up in England, but she didn't like it in England, and then they went from there to Australia.
Okay. So what kind of Estonian things were your kids involved in growing up?
Oh, Estonian camp, learning Estonian customs and then folk dances and singing. And Linda played clarinet and Marianne played flute in Estonian kids band in camp.
When did you finally get to be reunited with your sister and your mom?
When we came in States and when we moved to Baltimore, then we took the trip to Canada first time.
And that's when you got to see them
Yeah.
after all that time.
Right.
And where did they live in Canada at that time?
Windsor. Vivi still lives, my niece still lives there.
And then what happened to your brother?
My brother said that was the saddest moment when he came back and the little dog recognized him and was so happy. Look, it was his dog anyway, so he said it was empty house and everything was, taken. People robbed everything, papers all over. And then he went and lived with my uncle's family for a while. Till he went looking for our horse and found a wife.
Oh, you found a wife and a horse. So when did you get to see your brother again?
My mom's 90th birthday, they sent a letter and Canadian consul stamped it for them let to my brother to come visit. And that's when my brother and my niece came to visit to each other first time. And I said, my brother, you were the handsomest man in town. Now you're just an old man.
So how many years went by between your mom getting to see her son again and you getting to see your brother?
Since 1940.
So like 45 years.
Yeah.
Wow. And then how long was he able to stay and visit?
Oh, he was 1 week.
And then was that the only time you saw him?
Yes.
Yeah.
When we went to Estonia the first time, he had died just 3 months before we got there. He was so excited for us to come.
And this was right after they got their independence?
Yes.
In 91?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't see him. And what's life like now?
Life is a whole person's life. You go from one room to another and nothing get done.
Yes. Anything else you want to share?
No,
No?
there's nothing to share.
Okay. Well, we're very thankful you made it through all of that, because that is a lot. That is a lot.
You're very welcome. What time is
All right. It's about 12 till. You'll still be able to get on to exercise. All right. Thank you. Love you.
You're very welcome. I love you.